No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about networking.
Yeah, it's a good topic. I think it's important. And we're talking about actual people and not computers though, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is...
Okay, I just want to make sure.
This is not transition to an IT show behind your back without you knowing. Yes. I've seen a rise in people posting on LinkedIn around a job they just got. Like either they were searching for a job for a while, or they were laid off from their organization and they were on a job search for a while, and they are posting about that they landed a job. They got their new whatever the next thing is. And the rise that I'm seeing is in the number of people who in that post on LinkedIn, they credit their network for this opportunity, meaning it's not, I spent 10 hours a day applying to thousands of jobs and then eventually one got it. It's I leveraged my network and I couldn't have done this without that. And I like that. I'd like to believe that the effort that people put into relationships from a true standpoint of not what can this person or this relationship do for me now or down the road, but just I like this person. We have similar values. Let's be friends, right? Because you never know when your network might come into play in terms of your next career move. And I like seeing that rise in that. But this idea of networking, I think a lot of people they assume it means in places where they aren't normally at. Like they're at a cocktail mixer or somebody's wedding or at a conference and they strike up a conversation and someone happens to have a common interest. What I want to talk about when it comes to networking is networking within the organization you already have. So you're in a job right now and there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people who work in the same organization. And these are people who you don't have the opportunity to work alongside every day. You might encounter them by happenstance or because you're on a temporary project or this particular call that you were on, but they're right there all the time. I think a lot of people think, they're always there, almost like a relative who lives right across town and they're older and you find out they passed away and you regret that you never reached out and you think, well, they're always there. They're close. I don't have to make the effort. They're always going to be there. And then that goes away. I think a lot of people leave organizations in the exact same way. They don't ever cultivate the relationships and the networking that they should do within their own organization, and they don't realize the benefit of doing that while they're there with people who they wouldn't encounter normally. I think that hurts them in the long run, and the people who do it the right way, I think it just pays off in dividends throughout their entire career.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great point because I think that the easy thing to do for a lot of people is like you're going to show up to work, you're going to do what the job is, you're going to work with whether it's a team or you contribute your own work by yourself, but you're going to have a direct boss. Like you're going to have people that are within kind of your day-to-day circle that you'll spend most of your time with typically.
Right.
Of course, if you work from home, maybe it's a virtual team, things like that, but there are people that you will see and talk to or communicate with quite often. And I think that for most people, that's like, okay, like I kind of exist in this space and I'm going to, leverage my team for what I need and build relationships and spend time with people, that type of thing. And then that's typically enough. And I think kind of what you're talking about, and I think what is a great point from the LinkedIn standpoint is like those that understand the power of relationships, the power of people understanding who you are, the work that you do, your approach to the work, and you understanding them and getting to know them well, that pays off not only locally in the role that you currently have, but of course into the future as well. Because that's what happens. People change jobs, they change companies, they change careers. And if you've been a part of working with individuals and they know that you're someone who does great work, they know that they can kind of trust you, they know that they're aware of how you approach the work, how you treat other people, those things matter a lot as you grow your career. Again, whether it's the same company over time, because the decision makers are different. So like to get from this job to the next job, maybe it's just your direct boss and the movement or the promotion is within their, kind of organization. So they're the only one that's really involved. And then you continue to move your career. Then your boss's boss becomes a decision maker. Then there might be your boss's partners or peers may be a part of a process. Like you have these things that happen over time where the amount of people involved in decisions to your career and your day-to-day work become more and more, that if you're not building relationships or at least getting to know those people or helping them to see who you are and what you do ahead of those conversations, it can be a lot harder to work and navigate those opportunities versus someone who understands and is always looking to get to know somebody and say hi and spend a couple minutes talking to them, find out what they do, share with them what you do. A lot of companies and organizations and people are always up to grab coffee with someone or talk to them for a minute or say, hey, I know we just met. I'd love to learn more about you and kind of the work that you do and see, like, are there any elements where we kind of cross paths from a work standpoint? Like, would we be able to grab coffee, or can I get like 15 minutes of your time just so we can kind of like get to know each other a little bit more? Most people that I've met in life are like, yeah, of course, like no problem. Like yeah, sure, why not? And those things are so important when it comes to building that network and creating those opportunities for now and for the future.
Yeah, I that's perfectly stated. There's a Harvard Business Review article that was published this week that talks about this, and it references Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset versus fixed mindset, which we've spoken about on the podcast before, and around this idea of the work that is needed in order to do this. And I like the way this article kind of summarizes this, because I look at networking and relationships with people in terms of how it grows your network and how it sets you up for having your network be a powerful force that can act on your behalf in the future. I look at relationships with people almost like Venn diagrams. And so the person who works as a peer of mine on my team with me, who is in the same place in their career as me, in the approximately the same stage of life as me, the Venn diagram between me and that person almost lines up perfectly with itself. So there's going to be some deviation a little bit, but it's like two circles that almost completely overlap. And then a person who doesn't look like me, and who isn't in the same stage of life as me, and who doesn't work on the same team as me, and who works for another part of the organization doing something differently, those two, the circle of me and that person, they do not overlap at all, or they maybe overlap a little bit because we're in the same organization, but it's a much further apart Venn diagram. And then a person who works for an entirely other organization is even further apart. Another industry would be even further apart. I think that because a lot of people don't realize that even though you might change jobs several times throughout your career, it's actually it's a lot less likely for a person to change industries in their career more than maybe once. I think people don't realize that even if they are not leaving an organization, a lot of other people did in that same time. And having those people in your network while they were there, they're still in your network once they've left. And so cultivating those relationships with as many people who have as disparate Venn diagram circles from you as possible, that's the way to grow the network the most. Now, the further apart they are from me in terms of that Venn diagram, the more effort it takes to build that relationship, because there's less commonality. If I'm sitting in the cubicle next to a person and they look like me and we like the same music and we're doing the same work, doesn't take much effort. As long as you're not a jerk, you're probably going to have a good relationship with that person. That doesn't grow your network. What grows your network is the effort that it takes. And this article puts that in when it comes to growth mindset versus fixed mindset, is that it's this belief that, well, if the Venn diagram doesn't overlap, then there's no point in trying because it's not going to work out anyway. And obviously that's not true. The people I know have the best networks are the people who look at this from a standpoint of the more effort that this takes, it means that the more likely it is that it will grow my network in a substantial and meaningful way over time. And if people can kind of cultivate that mindset about it, I think it will pay off in the long run.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think of the times when my networks have expanded like quickly, and those things have always been those things have always happened because I was put in a situation or put on a team or did something with my time that exposed me to different audiences. So, you know, I've been a part of kind of volunteering my time for decades and decades, multiple companies around, you know, different employee groups and things like that, and helping to support up and coming leaders and like leadership development programs. And like when you do that, you end up meeting people that are also passionate about that same thing, but do jobs completely different than yours within the same organization. And so when that's happened, and I meet those individuals and we talk and we share this commonality around whether it's like, you know, advocating for helping people find their voice and kind of like, you know, raising their voices up, or working with up and coming talents and helping them to develop from like a mentorship standpoint. When you have that little bit, to your point, that like those diagrams just barely touch because you're in the same organization, and you find that little small thing that you have in common that you like, and then you start to expand it. I found my networks really grow quickly because it's interesting. It's like it's always happened. It's like I talked to this person that I just met. I talked to that person that I just met. We had these conversations, and then something comes across kind of my desk that's like, oh, man, we've been trying to get this thing done. We just wish that we knew somebody that worked over on this team. And then I'm just like, actually, I just met someone last week, you know?
Yeah.
And I met them through this. Let me reach out. And then I plug two people together, and then we get something across the finish line. And it's like, it happens almost every single time. And so I've learned and realized over time that importance of networking. But to your point, it took effort. It
Yes.
took me either, you know, raising my hand to take on some responsibility, volunteering my time for some responsibility. Every once in a while, I do get assigned to something where I have a different audience and a different group of people around me that I'm meeting. And so I take advantage of like that opportunity to talk to them and understand who they are and what they do, because I just learned over time that network is so critical to getting things done quickly. And I leverage my network constantly to find stuff that people can't find, to get things that people are looking for, to connect people that you know don't know who each other are, but they probably should. And you know, like there's so much value to it to me that I'm always looking for new opportunities to be in different groups where I can learn and grow and build my own network.
Yeah. I look at it from a standpoint of, you know, if you're picking carrots out of the ground, you can't judge what the size of the carrot is going to be based on the size of the green sprig that's kind of sticking out of the ground, you know. And if you look at it and go, oh, I'm only going to go for the ones where this is this giant thing sticking out of the ground, and I'm going to assume that the carrot below is a good sized carrot, and that might be the case, you know, for in some situations. But some of the biggest carrots might not have anything sticking out of the ground. It might take work and effort to get down to where the actual, you know, the desirable part is, but when you get there, it is it's something that will pay off dividends in the long run, or it may not. And that's the thing. That's where I think people get stuck, is that they want to see a 1 + 1 = 2 relationship, and that's kind of indicative of a person who's looking to build relationships only with people where they are certain this relationship will pay off for them in the long run. And that's not actually networking. That's just self-serving. The right way to build relationships is to find ways where your skill set and the things that you do well, and the things that you are good at, and the things that you are passionate about can help others. And if you can do that in that way, the way that will grow your network is in a way that is selfless. And growing your network in a way that says, I'm only looking to help others, is the only way to grow it effectively over the long term. Because it's fine to build a network with someone who you know they can do something for you in the long run, because they know that's why you're doing it anyway. And that's fine too. You're going to have some people like that in your career where it's just necessary to do that, and it's the smart thing to do. But the people I know who are the happiest and who have the strongest, largest networks over a long period of time are the ones who just trusted it was going to happen. They put the effort into the individual relationship because they liked that process. What they derived from it was, I like this process. I like people in general. I like talking to people. I like building relationships with people. I like digging and finding the commonalities that I might have with somebody, even if it might take a little bit of time to do that. And I just trust that over a long period of time, enough of those things that happen will pay off. It's not going to be something I can quantify in advance. Like it's like it's like doing an unpaid internship in the entertainment industry. You know, the amount of people who are like very, very successful in the entertainment industry now, who talk about how their first job was for the first 3 years. They didn't make any money. They got coffee for people because what they got out of it was just being in the room, right? And it's like that. If you think, well, I want to get paid for every single thing that I do, whether it's money or whether it's in seeing how the relationship's going to pay off for me. If you go into it with that mindset, you're going to build very, very shallow and superficial relationships with people, and they'll know that. But it won't be something that will pay off in the long run, and it won't give you a sense of fulfillment in terms of the people that you have in your network and the broadening of your of your worldview that you would get out of just genuinely liking people and making an effort to build relationships because you like doing that.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 minute hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
All right, for this episode's 1 minute hack, here's what I want you to do. Anytime you're meeting somebody new within your organization, someone who don't work alongside every single day, you're meeting this person for the first time, but they still work for the same company as you, I want you to make a habit of asking for time with that person, even if it's just 5 minutes, to talk about common goals and common interests and what they do for the organization, what you do for the organization. But most importantly, I want you to talk to that person about the things that you're passionate about and the things that you believe that you're good at, so that they file that information away in their head. And if something comes along that they need to get done, your name pops up in terms of what you could potentially do to help them solve a problem. And so it's not about making sure that you find out what they can do for you. It's about making sure they know what you like doing, what you're passionate about, what you're good at, and how you want to make a difference within the organization or the world as a whole. Make sure they know that information, because the more people you do that with, the more likely it will be that someone somewhere down the road is going to come up with a situation where they think, oh, I met Lorenzo 2 weeks or 2 years ago. I remember him telling me that he was passionate about exactly this thing. Let me reach out to him. And that will happen. The more often you do this, the more likely it will be. And the first time it does happen, it will feel absolutely amazing. It will validate every effort that you made. You won't think about the things that you did and that didn't pay off. Because again, it's about inserting yourself into as many places where your passions and your beliefs and your values can be on display in the work that you're getting done. So do it as often as you can, and you will see the fruits of that labor over a long period of time.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1 minute hack, and I like the asking for time thing, because sometimes you have the time in the moment to have a conversation, to get to know somebody, and sometimes the space that's been created is exactly for that reason when it comes to like allowing people to get together and to have conversations. But asking for the time with the intention of like, hey, like I'd love to get some time to connect, around the work and some of my passions, and I want to be a resource. If anything comes across, like I want to be a resource. So like I'd love for us to connect about that, so I can kind of share some of that work and telling people and like kind of build my network throughout the organization, like being upfront with that type of thing. So I think it's a great 1 minute hack.
Yeah, I think the most important part about this is understanding that people inherently know that skills can be taught, but a desire to help people and a genuine love of people and a love of creating relationships isn't something that can necessarily be taught. And so when you encounter somebody and you can make sure that they see your values on display, even if they are not anywhere related to you in terms of the work they're getting done or the work you're getting done, you will make an impression on that person that will potentially cause them to want to reach out in the future, even if the skill set doesn't match. Because again, we're talking about potential long-term business relationships. Those things cannot be rooted in skill sets. They are rooted in values, and they are rooted in common interests and common mindsets, because the skills will be taught. The mindset cannot be. Bring the mindset with you and show that on display as much as you can, and you'll be surprised how many times you'll have opportunities to leverage those into career growth, where you might have to learn a new skill, but you were given the door to walk through because of the values that you showed on display in those little moments where you have the opportunity to meet new people and cultivate those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such an important piece of like just not only like leadership, but like role modeling for your people, how networks are such a critical part of getting work done along with career progression. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.